Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the third annual Australian Islamic Schooling Conference, a focus on pedagogy. And allow me to start by acknowledging that the land we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Ghana people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with this country. We also acknowledge the Ghana people as the traditional custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Ghana people today as they were in the past. At this stage, allow me to invite a dear colleague and a friend and a brother, an elder of the Ghana people, our respected Professor Lester Irabina Rigni, to do the welcome to country. Thank you.
On behalf of the Ghana people, I welcome you to our country. It's a beautiful country, and if this is my mother's country, actually, and grandmother's country. For those who don't know where my father's country is, it's your peninsula. So if you just go down to the beach and swim for about 3 weeks, you'll hit your peninsula, and that's my father's country. But it's an honour to be here today. But I wanted to say to you that this country that you're sitting on is quite old, and Aboriginal people are the oldest people on the planet, and that before my mother and father got together, generations before they got together, this coastline was joined to your peninsula. That's how long we've been here. We've got a story about how a kangaroo dug onto the ground and made this body of water in between the two lands, between your peninsula and Adelaide. So we have stories about what the landscape looked like before the water was here. So that's how long we've been here, how old we've been here. But Australia is home to all people within its borders, and all the children who live within Australia have citizenship rights. And so it's coincidence, I guess, maybe not coincidence, that this conference is held during NAIDOC Week, the National Aboriginal Islanders Days Conference Committee Week. This is my busiest week. And the theme for that is because of her we can. And I just wanted to say, bring revolutionary praise to all the women in the room. And just to say, because of you we can. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my amazing mother, who was the first female Aboriginal school principal in Australia, Dr. Alice Rupin. There was no urban Aboriginal schools until she built one. And now there's 36 schools across the country just like hers. And I want to say to you today, as women, you are powerful, and I respect you, and Australia deserves you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Always inspiring words. Always love to listen to Professor Rigni. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, allow me at the outset to acknowledge the presence of the following people. The Honourable John Gardner, Minister of Education, Mr. Nigel Ralph, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor and President of the University of South Australia, Professor Stephen Dobson, the Head of School and Dean of the School of Education, University of South Australia, Dr. Fawzan, the Vice Dean for Partnership, the State Islamic University, Jakarta, Indonesia. Dr. Ahmed Sufyan, the Vice Dean for Administration, the State Islamic University, Jakarta, Indonesia. Our keynote speaker, Professor Lester Irabina Rigni, Professor of Education, University of South Australia. Another keynote speaker, Professor Rob Hutton, Professor of Education Justice, University of South Australia. Keynote speaker, Dr. Nadeem Memon, Senior Research Fellow at SITE at University of South Australia. Dr. Deborah Price, the Executive Member at the Australian Curriculum Studies Association and the President. Ms. Ainur Semisil, President, Islamic Schools Association of Australia. Mr. Ahmed Zreiqa, President, Islamic Society of South Australia. all the principals, teachers and imams of the many schools represented here from all around Australia, and our international guests and partners from Brunei, Canada, Indonesia, Oman, Qatar, Sri Lanka, United Arab Emirates, UK and the USA. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this conference. May I at this stage also introduce the Honourable Minister John Gardner, the Minister of Education. John Gardner has represented the seat of Rialta in Adelaide's north-eastern suburbs and Near Hills Township since 2010. He is a member, sponsor or patron of a wide range of local community, sporting and service organisations in his electorate. Mr. Gardner was appointed Minister for Education after the March 2018 state election, having previously served as Shadow Minister in this portfolio since 2016. He is also the leader of government business in South Australian House of Assembly. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Gardner.
It is an honour to be here today. I particularly want to welcome guests to South Australia. South Australia is a state that is extremely pleased to have conferences such as this. We have a very significant focus on education, and we also hope that you have a wonderful time while you're here and will enjoy coming back for future conferences and for leisure.
Islam, of course, has a very ancient tradition, very sophisticated tradition of education, which has in many ways already enriched Western education. I remember Mohammed's inaugural lecture when he went through in interesting and illuminating detail the way in which Islamic science had influenced Western science thinking.
Multiculturalism of various kinds. So whilst we might be rightly proud of multiculturalism in Australia, then cultural diversity is still a highly contested type of concept, both in the workplace, in the media and in culture, the modern Australian culture. And cultural diversity is one of the most divisive sites in Australian politics at the moment. So what does this mean for culturally responsive pedagogies?
Pedagogy here refers to a deliberate attempt to influence how and what knowledge and identities are produced with and among particular sets of social relations. So in this case, the definition is focusing on knowledge and identity. Okay, so there's a transaction around knowledge and identity formation. So what types of young people do we want to be producing seems to be a fundamental.
Dr. Nadeem is a Senior Research Fellow at SITE, UniSA. He's an expert and world leader in the area of Islamic pedagogy and is well known for his teacher education contributions globally and now here in SITE.
And when we think about conceptualizing Islamic pedagogy, need to consider some of those complexities. So I'll pick up where they left off speaking about instruction, but ask the question of what is pedagogy?
All right, thank you very much. If you could find your seats, or your neighbour's seat if they've stood up, that's fine.
Would it not be much better to focus more on, creating our own epistemology for this?
In the UAE, we have a very diverse society where we have over 120 nationalities.
Maximising the benefit from the professional learning, but also don't cause in the process.
Why did you give them a different score? Oh, I don't understand the words. So this concept of lack of comprehension immediately came up. I don't understand.
I don't see my students, they have to listen to me. No, I listen to them. I believe they can teach me something. I will learn from them. I'm not know it all.
Seriously, this session promises to be extremely valuable as we have the opportunity to hear from educators from across Islamic schooling context, including Australia, the UAE, and UK and Sri Lanka. and share their experiences in putting their own conceptualisation of Islamic pedagogy into practice.
Sessions. So as long as I'm covering my content, then we're able to go out there during practical sessions.
But that gives me so much comfort to know that Rasli Muhammad Abdullah's. It's fantastic. The book presents the views of leading scholars, academics and educators on the renewal of Islamic schools in the Western context.
It recognises that we have talent within the community, we have the know-how, we have a way of knowing.
Assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure to be here from Brunei Darussalam. It's so wonderful to be here at a conference specifically on pedagogy and Islamic pedagogy. I think you've got a major contribution that you've made here, and I'm sure in the future this shows that a subfield is going to grow quite significantly.
So what if we change the language and we start to articulate a belief of what makes us distinct? So it's no longer about what we do, because we all have an excellent schooling environment and an integrated curriculum which we're working on, and a character education program which is becoming. But I as a parent and you as parents, we want to know what you believe in. And I would argue that if we were able to articulate in a way that was convincing what we believe in, we would convince those parents that are on the fence.
But most importantly, that today's 15-year-olds are actually going to face 17 different jobs across 5 different careers. So that big question about how well are we preparing our children? And of course, you know, at school it's not necessarily just the career that we're really working towards, but those skills and those attributes are extremely important. So understanding the landscape, if you like, of what really lies ahead of them, I would say is extremely important.
We appreciate this opportunity to share something of the Catholic experience of religious education as it relates to the conference themes of renewal and pedagogy.
I started with the idea of the Khalifa Fitr Din. So, how connection with nature? How do we treat nature? How do we treat animals? And I think that brings us to maybe how we should be designing schools. We talked about permaculture yesterday and regenerative type communities, those types of areas.
And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to them, I know what you do not know. And then taught Adam and Hawa the knowledge. And then, but in that circumstance in which Adam and Hawa are, is in a circumstance of obedience. They're not in a world or experiential world, a world of cause and effect.
So when we look at Islamic pedagogical leadership, we must consider good counsel and sincere conduct, okay? So when we think of that value, we think good counsel requires leaders to be knowledgeable, well-informed, seek the best course of action, and act in consideration of others. That is just kind of what I said just a few slides before, okay? And so when we look at the Western literature of leadership, we see Shapiro and Stefkovich saying, treat others with respect, empathy, and kindness. Be knowledgeable about best practices in curriculum and pedagogy. It is the same. It is.
And then I will to introduce again about the learning and teaching process in the grand theory. In the grand theory, in the general perspective, we find the first is nativism for Schopenhauer, and the second is empirism from John Locke, and the second is convergence from William Stern. This is the grand theory in the pedagogic.
So in our mind, the good student not only good in academic, but he will to good in moral.
A middle leader from Bringelli said, if I see anything against the Islamic purpose on any level, I immediately address it. I do not want to say or do anything that will set the wrong example for students to follow. I have to be mindful of how I act at all times. A small slip-up on my behalf could be a wrong influence on some learner for a lifetime. This last response, if we can reflect on that, reinforces the importance of words and action, of the adab that is particular and specific to trustees, reinforcing its importance as a leadership practice.
Full job in MC.